Hello everybody and welcome back to another Java tutorial. I'm sorry I did say we were going to be going over the hierarchy of containers, and then I realized we haven't done a video about classes, which is the biggest container. And then I was going to do some video about access modifiers, and then I realized we should learn about global variables first. So that's exactly what we're going to do, simply because we've now learned about methods. So let's just delete these two methods, and just like that. Now we know about variables that go inside of these methods. So we create a new integer, we just do int. This is a variable. We can call this a variable a equals to 5, right? And then and that is a variable, and then we can use this variable, such as we can print it, we can add to it, like we can do a plus 5, and then it'll print out 10, because 5 plus 5 is 10, just like that. But here's the thing, we've learned about methods, and methods are just ways of organization, which is something I should have explained in the previous video. Methods just organize all of your code. So let's create a new method called public static void math, or let's do math. Do math, and now let's just call this do math method. Do math, and then in this do math method we can do int a new integer called variable a equals to 5, integer variable b equals to 2, and we can print out 5 plus 2, and or sorry, not 5 plus 2, a plus b, which is the same thing as 5 plus 2. When we run it, it'll run any code in here, and so it'll print out 7. So that works, right? So then we have global variables. So there's global variables and local variables, or they're actually said by saying global scope variables and local scope variables, but essentially global variables allow you to access. So okay, well, let's rewind the clocks a bit. We have this variable, right? If we go over here to this main method, we can't actually call this variable. If we do b, it doesn't exist. It doesn't know what b is, because b is inside of this container. You can think of it as having two boxes. This is one box, and this is another box. And while this box has this certain toy, the other box doesn't have that toy, so it doesn't know so the other box doesn't know what that toy is. Well, this box does, because the toy is inside of that box, this box. I'm not sure if that made any sense, but let's just do this. So we cannot access this variable from anywhere outside of this method. That's because this is a local scope variable. But what if we want to access this variable outside? Well, there's a few extra steps in creating a global variable. This is a local variable. Let's create a global variable. So let's just go up here. This is where global variables are usually placed. And the first thing we want to type out is the access modifier. Now, you don't have to type out the access modifier if it's a certain modifier, but we'll get into that in a different video. Today, let's just forget about the access modifiers and let's not type it out. So let's create a variable called integer b equals to 4. Now, if you remember over here, and we type in int b equals to 4, we can't actually do that because there's two variables with the same name. However, we can differentiate between the two. This variable b and the other variable b by this keyword. I'll create another video about that just to clarify things. But if you want to reference this variable, you just say b, you reference it by like we did before. But if you want to reference the other variable b, we can do this dot b. This dot b will access this variable, but let's just move on. So we have integer b equals to 4, and integer b needs to be accessed, but we can't actually access it because we need the static keyword in front of it. We'll get into that in another video, but for now, just go along with it. Just put the static keyword there, and if we can, and now we can replace this with this other variable. Let's put 2, just like we had it before. And now you can see that this variable is purple. Now that's because it's saying, alright, it's purple and italicized because this is a global variable. Meanwhile, this is a local scope variable. They're just formatting and they're just formatting that way you can differentiate the two different uh, locations of the variables. So essentially, this variable can now be accessed from here and from here. So if I want to access it from here, I already did. I just said B right here, that this B is referencing this B. You can actually see what it's referencing on IntelliJ if you hold Control and then you hover your mouse over B, then you click it, it'll bring your cursor up to here, which is the variable that it's referencing. So we are referencing B in this method, but then we can also reference it here by saying B, just like that, and that's referencing it too. So let's just run the code now. You can see it prints out 7 and 2. Now first thing, it prints out 7. Now that's because we called this method first, so it runs whatever's in here, right? And in this case, it prints out A plus B, which is 5, plus 2, and then it prints out 7, because 5 plus 2 is 7. And then, after this method is run, then we print out B. We say system.out.print B. Now, B is, of course, referencing this global variable, and so it prints out 2, because B is set to 2. That's it for global variables and local scope variables. I hope you learned something from this episode, and feel free to leave a question in the comment section below. Have a good day. Goodbye.